Hey everyone, on this episode of Teeter Talks, I have Dr. Robyne back again. This is my first reoccurring guest. I was so excited to have her the first time, and we had so much that we had to talk about that I had to have her back again. This time we're talking all things hope. She has a new book that's just out called I Hope So. And we really get into the details of this very powerful state and emotion, how it's not fluffy, it's essential, it's a strategy to success and living a better life. We had a great conversation. She is such a wealth of knowledge. You are going to love everything she has to say. Everybody, please enjoy my conversation, part 2 with Dr. Robyne. Well, hello, Dr. Robyne.
Well, hello, Marilys. Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
You're my first reoccurring guest. You were the first person I've had back now for a second time, which we kind of foreshadowed it the last time we spoke. We ran out of time. It was not nearly enough time. I feel like you and I can chat forever, to the point where we literally had to stop the chit chat before recording here to say, save it for the podcast.
I love this. Absolutely, Marissa. I am so honored to be back. Thank you for having me.
So I have to say, I was so excited when you asked me a few months ago to take, I guess, a sneak peek at your new book, which is called I Hope So. And what continues to amaze me about you is your relentlessness in terms of trying to slice and dice these things, these concepts, these tactics to help people in so many different ways so something sticks. Yeah. I just feel like you're always trying to get more granular, more specific, more detailed, coming at things from different perspectives to just make sure that the work you're doing matters and is sticking and is being impactful. When I say your work is digestible, because I said it last time we spoke, and I probably said it to your face a couple times, I don't mean that it goes through you quickly. I mean that it really gives you something that sticks with you, that can become part of you, and that is easy to regurgitate and live by and practice. And so when I read this sneak peek copy, which by the way, I don't read very often, so that is a huge compliment. I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but
no, it's good. It's true.
You write so well, and I feel like so many of your thoughts and concepts continue to swirl through my mind every day.
Oh my goodness. Well, that is very generous feedback. And coming from you, that means a lot. And ultimately, it's all driven by this curiosity of trying to understand the human condition, as well as wanting to be useful. I just love being able to take big ideas and make sense to them to myself first. And then when I have those learnings or those knowings, being able to share it with other people, it's something that I feel really passionate about.
And I don't even think it's something that you think too hard about. I think your gift is finding a way to say things in a way that will really connect with people, like giving them the how. And I know we've talked about this before. In the work that I do, I love getting down to the how.
Yes.
Right? Like, what are the specific words you should be saying? What are the specific phrases, or how, getting granular so that it sticks is so important. And I love this new book, I Hope So, because you get very specific. Yeah. And it's not like people are reading it and going, I get it. I should be more hopeful. I get it. I should lean into hope. But what the heck do I do? How do I do it? You give tons of ideas and tons of examples, and inevitably something will stick.
Yeah. And that is the hope, right? Yeah. So the reality is, where this actually kind of came from. And again, thank you for your feedback and your perspective. Where this came from is, studied human resiliency for decades, navigating stress, studied that, really got a good sense of it. But then I got really curious about because the question I would always hear, Marissa, would be what's the one thing? Like, what is the one thing? If I can only do one thing, what should I be doing? And what was interesting when I did that kind of zoom out, looking at all this body of work, all the people that I've had the opportunity to work with, which I'm appreciative for, it was, the through line through all of this was people who had a hope practice. And when you start seeing this come time and time again about what's differentiating people who are able to, even with all the noise and all the negativity, they're still able to kind of keep showing up, that this isn't toxic positivity. This isn't just wishful thinking or a mindset. It was wow, these people actually are cultivating practices, habits, rituals, routines that are keeping their hopes up, and being able to then translate that and put it into, again, a wee little book to make it accessible for other people was really special.
I love it because I think people might hear this and think hope is a fluffy
Yes.
concept, right? That
Yeah.
it's hard to articulate. It's up
Mhm.
there with like positivity and faith. And to your point,
Yeah.
like how do we really nail down hope?
Mhm.
How do we replicate it? How do we teach it? How do we embody it? It's fluffy.
Yes.
But this book is so far from that. And I
Mhm.
love it because I'm a big believer in a lot of these traits and emotions and characteristics that we would maybe typically call fluffy these days,
Yeah.
in my opinion, are the most powerful tools in our toolboxes to lead better
100%.
lives.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
I think we get really caught up, especially in like I'm coming at it sometimes from a corporate, but a leadership
Yes.
lens, but also from a human lens. I think we get caught up in these really hard technical skills
Yes.
that we think will make you a great leader or a
Mhm.
really successful person, insert whatever you've chosen to do with your life here. But
Yes.
I am learning and seeing firsthand more and more that these fluffy, quote unquote,
Yeah.
qualities are the ones that are really the differentiators for people. They're the ones that are really fueling success and fulfillment and impact. And it needs to be, I mean, you bring that to life in your book. So maybe let's
Mm.
start there. You've
Mhm.
explained why you decided to lean into hope. It
Yeah.
was kind of the one through line.
Yes.
How do you describe hope, and maybe how is it different than things like positivity or optimism or faith?
Yeah, I would love to dive into that question. And first, if it's okay, just to
Yeah.
close that loop about what you were just
Yes.
talking about this idea about the soft skill or this
Yes.
really abstract concept that we can't operationalize, therefore we can't kind of incorporate it into corporate, into, high performance models. It feels maybe a wee bit wishy-washy, for
Right.
example.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
the reality is I can share with you just last week, I was in San Diego sitting across the table from a retired Navy SEAL commander. Like, I mean, this
Mm.
is a hero. This is battle tested hero. I'm sitting across the table and he said, my entire career in the military was built on this idea that hope is not a strategy. And he said, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that it is, because I would not have been able to do what I did if I
Mm.
didn't believe I was coming home. If I didn't believe that this was worthwhile, I didn't believe my team was okay. And he said, what you've been able to do is articulate an abstract concept in such a way that this is what is the differentiator. This is how hope and staying hope filled changes
Mhm.
us physiologically and psychologically. And why I share that is, there's something pretty remarkable about like a Navy SEAL dude looking at you
Yes.
being like, yeah, you nailed this, girl. Like, you are on the right track. And I'm like, thank you, thank you,
You.
thank you. Right. It was a
You're
really
like, I
cool
know,
moment.
but thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And what was so significant is, again, this is someone who, has seen things that we can't even likely
Sure.
imagine, and understands that there's this camaraderie, this understanding of this belief and trusting. And that kind of leads us to the question you asked about how do we differentiate it from things like optimism or, faith and belief. When we think about hope, hope filledness it's a state. It is a state where we aren't necessarily attached to outcomes, which would be
Mhm.
more optimism. So optimism would be, I applied for that new position and I'm really counting on getting it. Like, I believe I'm going to get it, right? That's being optimistic that I'm attached to an outcome that's in my favor. Being hope filled in that same scenario, Marissa, is looking at that position and being like, you know what, this feels really good right now. And like, I would love to do that, but I'm trusting that if that's not available to me right now, it wasn't meant for me. And there's going to be something else. And I trust the process. I trust myself. I trust the process. And then we're able to like operate in this place of ease versus this pressure of trying to control everything. And
Mm.
I think the quickest way to feel out of control is to try and control everything. So there's this component of surrendering that happens with being hope filled,
That's
where
my
it's like,
word of
it's going to
2026.
happen. It's going to happen and it's going to be good.
Yeah. It's funny you say surrender. That's my word this year for
Yeah.
2026. It's surrender
Beautiful.
because
Yep.
you cannot control everything.
Mhm.
And you do have to leave certain things up to hope,
Yeah.
momentum, right? Again,
Yeah.
it would be impossible for me to say where I'm going to be at the end of this year. And I don't want to sell myself short. I don't want
Yes.
to dream too small. I don't want
Yeah.
to limit myself in terms of
Yeah.
opportunities that could come up. But I'm hopeful that it'll work out and I will be
Yeah.
better off no matter what happens. But surrender to that is really important. What about the flip side of that in terms of hopelessness.
Mhm.
What do we
And
see in hopelessness?
yeah. And that, like, right now, it feels like, the world for the most part is in this chokehold of despair,
Yes.
where, like, getting your hopes up right now in the state of the world, even just like, geopolitically, like what is happening around us, like it literally feels like this is like a scary time in history. And being hope filled doesn't dismiss that. It isn't
Yeah.
toxic positivity that we don't realize that the world is very unwell, but it's recognizing that me being reactive, me shutting down, me being dismissing, me getting cold, me just like blocking it all out, that's not going to be the remedy. That is not what the world needs right now. We need people that are actually able to almost be like heroically hope filled, that said, you know what, I am going to get my hopes up that 2026 is going to be a great year. I am going to get my hopes up that, that these medical diagnoses are going to work in our favor. I am going to get my hopes up that my children are going to have an amazing season as they go into early adulthood. And there's something really remarkable as a collective
Mm.
when we face all of that noise, all of that negativity, all of that awfulness that we're seeing just rampant right now, and saying, this, I'm not going to be defined by this. Like, I'm somebody who is choosing to keep showing up, to keep exercising my agency, to protect my peace, to surround myself with people who also get it. And
Yeah.
again, this isn't exclusionary. It's this opportunity that, if we're going to show up and we're going to choose hard parts, which is inevitable, let's choose the hard parts about being able to keep our hopes up when the world feels pretty unsteady.
Yeah. And I know sometimes people get worked up about false hope.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that sometimes because I'm like, is there really such thing as false hope?
Yeah. I don't believe so.
I don't think
Yeah.
so either. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking in different contexts, and so many outcomes are not guaranteed.
Correct.
Right. And so to get one's hope up is hoping for the outcome that maybe you want, although it's not always clear how that outcome may transpire or manifest itself. But there's something, I think, in false hope that it's almost like a double negative.
Yes.
Or I think that's the whole purpose of hope, and it can't be false. I mean, it's going to be false because you don't even know what's going to happen. You're just hopeful it's going to work out.
Yeah. And I look at it this way, is this idea that when we assume the worst, okay, we're making a hypothesis. We don't know that the worst is going to happen.
Mhm.
And we exercise that hypothesis of it not working out or it not kind of unfolding the way that we're imagining. We exercise that quite liberally, right? Like, it's just like, yeah, of course, like, don't get your hopes up. Like, imagine worst case scenarios, imagine kind of what's going on. And when we think about that, those are ultimately just working hypothesis, right? Like, based on some of the variables that we know a little bit of information about, the likelihood that things are going to unfold a particular way, it's okay that, we're assuming that this isn't going to be good. Again, it's a working hypothesis. And if we hold space to allow us to have these negative working hypotheses with nobody questioning them, right? Why not have the opposite, where why not let yourself get your hopes up and imagine what's possible? Like, exploring best case scenarios. And just even notice in your body, right? So if you have a situation and you're like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen here? And you know what that feels like. You already feel the fear. You already feel that anxiety, that disappointment, that scariness. And then just, again, hold space, imagining, what if the best thing that happened happens? What if something beautiful unfolds? And just notice how that feels in your body. And that's not woo woo. It is literally science, right?
100%.
Like, we can sit with the scariest thought and we can feel fear, we can feel anxiety, all the things, or we can sit with like the most beautiful outcome possible, that beautiful, thing that's what we're imagining, wishing for, hoping for, and even just notice how that energetically feels different in the body. And when you hold those two competing states, ask yourself, where do you think you make better choices from? Where do you see that you have this abundance of compassion and empathy and love and joy, versus when you're in a state of being hope filled versus when you're in a place of despair?
You talk about how it feels physically, and I think the question is, how do you want to feel, and how do you want to exist while you're either being hopeful or
Mhm.
hopeless? Like, you
Yep.
actually show up differently. It feels differently in your body. Your energy levels are different. Your mood is
Yep.
different. And I don't think it's time wasted to live off the hope high like
Mhm.
living a good life off the
Yeah.
hope high, and maybe it
Yeah.
doesn't work out, and then trust in that moment you can deal with the thing that maybe didn't go the way you had expected it to, but maybe didn't go as bad as you would have
Exactly.
expected it to had you been hopeless. So
Yeah.
I just always think about kind of the journey and the time between now and what I'm hopeful for. How do I want to live? Like what's the downside of living hopefully
Yeah.
and feeling great?
Absolutely. Yes. And again, it's interesting because one of the surprising outcomes we found in this when we were doing the research was that being in a state of holding hope is actually like a pretty strong forceful nature. And what I mean by
Mhm.
that is, yes, it's this place of surrender and there's an ease to it, but like it takes a lot of courage to hold hope when everyone else is getting like way ahead of themselves. They're like dooming, kind of forecasting things not being good, and all this what if happens. For you to be able to say there, be like, yeah, I know that exists, right? We know that that's out there in the world, and I'm choosing to occupy this space right now where I'm protecting my peace. I'm leaning into having this outcome work well. And what's so remarkable is that there's parts of the human condition, biologically, psychologically, and even physiologically, that we don't even understand, right? Like we don't even understand yet about the human condition in terms of how those energy sources are working. And what we do know is that this is a place where people are able to get so much comfort and peace, and
Mm.
that reduces that stress and the pressure on their nervous system, which is connected to their immune system. So again, these systems are all interconnected, and why not choose to put ourselves in a place where we have the best opportunity to have that big bright future that we're hoping for?
Yeah, I don't see the downside, right? I don't like what's the alternative? If I had to live one way or the other way, I obviously would choose to be hopeful. So hopefully
Yeah.
it's something I can learn to do, or hopefully it's something I can learn to tap into.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the impact that having hope and sharing hope has. But before that, in your book, you talk about hope moves, and there's three of them: see hope, choose hope, and share hope. Can you talk a little bit about what that concept means and how you bring that to life?
Yeah, I love that question. And also, I just want to hold space to recognize your degree of professionalism, as I literally have puppies who are causing a ruckus for people who are listening to this and not watching this. And like Marissa is like locked in, like literally
I don't
Navy
see
and
any
Memphis are.
puppies. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. They are literally having like a little WWE match right here. And of course, they picked this spot in the
Of
whole
course.
house to have a
Yes.
wee bit of a rumble. But again, your degree of professionalism is not lost on me.
That's why they pay me the big dollars,
Yeah,
Robin.
I
Your
could there you
dogs,
I
I
could
mean.
tell.
Yes.
I could tell. Absolutely. So to circle back to your question, this idea about 3 hope moves. And what we see in the research is that similar to concepts like worry or
Mm.
fear, even anxiety, we were never actually explicitly taught those. And what I mean by that is likely our mamas didn't sit us down and say, okay, girl, this is how you overthink. This is how you worry. This is how you stress yourself out. This is how you carry more than what's yours that you're responsible for. Like nobody sat us down and told us this is how you worry. It's modeled to us. And
Mm.
in the same way, we can model for the people around us what it looks like to lean into hope, what it looks like to choose to subscribe to this belief system that all will be well, that we're going to be okay. So the first kind of idea there with like, it's the idea of like, we choose hope. Right. As we've already talked about, like, yes, we can choose to think about what's the worst case scenario. Well, you can also choose a best case scenario. And if you're in this meantime, this messy middle of waiting, which the research shows on average, people spend 6 years of their life waiting. Like, isn't that just remarkable if we actually think about
Terrifying.
6 years of our life is waiting? If we're going to be in this weird middle time, this messy middle, or the meantime, why not choose to spend that hoping that
Mhm.
things are going to be okay? We'll figure it out if it's not because we're well resourced, but like, let's hope that things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
So that's the idea about choosing hope. And then the idea is we want to see it, we want to look for it. And I mean by that is, first thing in the morning you wake up, right? What are you looking at? What are you taking in, right? We often talk about this idea that our diet is so much more than just our diets are so much more than just what we're eating. It's what we're seeing, it's who we're spending time with, it's what we're consuming. what kind of content is that? So are we seeing examples of hope in the world? Are we seeing those good news stories, or are we just being inundated by all that negativity and fear? That's going to have an impact on our capacity to hold hope. And lastly, it's the idea of sharing hope. And one of the most beautiful practices that I see in action, and this is something I do with my close friends and family often, is to ask them, like, what are you hoping for right now?
Hmm.
And may I hope with you?
Oh, I love that.
And sitting beside someone when they share with you, I'm really hoping for this. And just being in community to say, like, can I hope with you? What does that look like? What does it feel like? There is something that's happening energetically that it's even hard to put into words.
That might be one of the most beautiful gifts you can give somebody, is to offer them, to hope with them. I love
Yeah.
that so much. Everyone needs
Yeah.
to go do that,
Yeah.
because we, first of all, if the other person isn't hoping for something, I hope that it encourages them to hope for something.
Yeah.
And then you're showing them your support and allyship in believing in that. And
Yes.
again, oh my gosh, that is such a simple but such a powerful move and
Yeah.
tactic. I love that.
Yeah. And
What a
Marissa, I've
gift.
seen it in so many different contexts. So, for example, even just a colleague of mine recently, we were chatting about kind of our goals for 2026. And we both kind of jokingly were both in kind of that speaker role. And one of the things that we talked about was like being the second row on like a marquee, right? Like
Oh
neither
yeah.
of us are interested in being like the headliner. That's not our jam. But like, how cool would it be like to be second row? Like, we
Yeah.
don't want all of the pressure. We don't like, we'll have that person at the top get people to the event, but then we will do right by them in the
Yes.
second row.
Yes.
And so interestingly, so we were chatting about this second row position that we both
Love
wanted.
that.
And anyway, and so sure enough, just yesterday, Dr. Greg sends me a screenshot and he's like, dude, I made the second row. And it was like,
Oh.
yes, Greg. And because we shared that we both were hoping, like this was something professionally we were hoping for, all of a sudden to being able to share that coming to pass, understanding how significant. And he even wrote in his text message, he's like, most people wouldn't understand why this is such a win, but I've been hoping for this. And I'm like, dude, I've been hoping for you for this as well. And so it creates this collective of recognizing that we're getting our hopes up. And again, we want to have these big, bold dreams because that's going to be the remedy when the world feels right now like it's robbing us of all of our joy. It's robbing us of futures. It's robbing us of possibility. There's a way that we can combat that.
I love that so much, because I think, I don't know. I don't know if everyone wants to talk about fun and joy. And I don't know if hope gets enough attention, to be
Agreed.
honest with you.
Yeah.
So how do we, because you're so good at this, at getting
Mhm.
people, engaged and giving them really good bite-sized nuggets to take back and apply. How do you cultivate hope? I guess
Yeah.
it's a two-pronged question. Are some people born more hopeful than other people? And can you, I mean, I'm assuming you can cultivate hope, but
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really amazing question. And like we can go pretty deep in terms of like temperament, personality, psychology. Like that is where I spent, 20 years teaching at the university. So like the psychology behind this, we can go pretty deep. Ultimately, if we take the lens from attachment theory, which is the field in which that's where I used to work, is that people who are securely attached, it is easier for them to get their hopes up because they have high levels of trust in self and they have high levels of trust in other. So they're able to trust the world and they're able to trust themselves, which by definition is why we would consider them securely attached. Now, not everybody is 100% one category. We know that a person who is securely attached also will have some secondary components as well. But we do know people who, for however the world unfolded and they happen to grow up in a household where they are securely attached, it is easier for them to get their hopes up again because they trust themselves and trust the world. That being said, it doesn't mean that people who aren't securely attached aren't able to. It's just we might have to put a wee bit more intention and practice behind it because it's almost as if our default settings tend to look towards the negative,
Right.
or they tend to maybe play it a wee bit safe versus allowing themselves that flexibility, that creativity, that adaptiveness for them to imagine what's possible. Because the world has probably sent them some messages along the way that it's not always safe, that people don't always have your back. And if, for example, even when somebody says like, don't get your hopes up, right? I don't think they're like joy stealers, right?
No.
It's not that they're trying to like ruin your, buzzkill, or they're taking
Right.
the sparkle off things. They are trying to protect you,
Protect you.
right? They don't want you to feel pain or rejection or fear or disappointment. So they're like, maybe just be cautiously optimistic. It's like, yes. And that's like when you already know how to swim, but you're still wearing the water wings, or you're
Right.
staying in the shallow end because
Totally.
you're like, I'm just going to stay smaller over here
Yeah.
because this feels safe. The reality is the world is so unpredictable. There's no certainty. And if we only get one go at this, we want to live fully alive, fully engaged in all possibility.
So looks like we can learn to be hopeful. And maybe
Yes,
some of us are a little more predisposed to it than
perfectly
others.
said. Yes.
How would you encourage people if they decided they wanted to be more hopeful? What could they do tomorrow? What could they
Yeah.
start doing to cultivate hope in their lives?
Yeah. So probably the super skill that I think gets overlooked a lot right now, especially with personal development and emotional intelligence, it's really self-awareness, right? So
Mm.
any practice that's going to cultivate self-awareness is going to help us here. So simply start just noticing. Like noticing when somebody tells you their big dream or their big idea, how quickly that inner monologue goes to, that project's not going to work, or
Mm.
that feels a little ambitious, right? Like it takes these like very subtle little kind of nuances to notice, like, whoa, maybe I'm not holding a really positive outlook. Or like, oh, too many people, like, why would you start a podcast if there's a million podcasts out there? It's, you've missed the boat, right? Or you've missed your opportunity or
Yeah.
chance. Like, so simply just noticing that monologue that is unfolding, right? So just kind of catch yourself being a wee bit, less than hopeful, and then start noticing, where are some situations or people that it's easier for you to lean into, where you're able to, like, oh yeah, I can totally see that working out for that person, or I can totally see this unfolding. So again, all we're doing is putting on just this little bit of this awareness perspective of noticing, where is it that I'm more at ease to let things and the good in, and where am I a wee bit more hesitant. And you might notice personally, like, no, you don't have your hopes up very good, but professionally, oh my gosh, they're soaring, right? So just
Mm.
again, getting a pulse check on where you are can happen through that self-awareness. And the other part I think that's so important is, we are taking in enormous amount of content, right? We know that we are in this place of consuming so much content. Just noticing the difference when you take in good news stories,
Mm.
right? Things that are giving you this kind of little like encouragement about humanity is actually not going to hell in a handbasket, that, we are going to be able to fight another day. And again, just hearing stories of recovery, of renewal, of growth, of second chances. And when you start seeing those all around you, we're going to start to notice them. And that ties into what's called primacy recency effect, which means when the brain has seen it, it's more likely that it's going to see more of it.
I have this conversation quite often. It's funny. I had two friends who went off social media this summer for a couple months. And it all started with a conversation that we had where they were like, I can't take it anymore. All of these bad things happening and this. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, it's just all over my feed and it's all I see. And then did you see this terror? And a lot of it was referring to the wars in the Middle
Yes.
East. And they were going on and on about detailed scenarios. Like, didn't you see the woman who's 3 kids? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they were like, what are you talking about? It's everywhere. And I said, no, no, no. It's all over your pages. It's all
Yes.
over your algorithm. I don't watch kittens and puppies, but I love the ones where people are doing random acts of kindness. I
I
love
love that.
watching, silly dance videos or silly,
Yes.
I said, I am so mindful. Like, I only watch comedies. I
Yes.
don't watch,
Yeah.
murder, mystery,
Yeah.
drama. Like,
Mhm.
I would love to be able to watch Yellowstone, but even that is too heavy for me sometimes.
Yes.
I mean, it's some great visuals, but
Yes.
I I'm constantly reminding people you have to protect what you're letting in, because
Totally.
you think, and even my parents, like I would send my kids to my parents' house to have a sleepover, and my daughter would come back and start asking me about all the ways our house could burn down. And I'm like, what are you
Mhm.
talking about? Well,
Mhm.
because my parents watched the 11 o'clock news every
That's
single night.
right.
Why she was awake at 11
Yeah.
o'clock, that's another story. But they're watching
Love
11
that.
o'clock news, and there's nothing good on the 11 o'clock news, but there was
Mhm.
house fires and there was
Yeah.
this bad thing. And I'm just like, that's what's rumbling around your brain. So you're going to think it
Yeah.
happens more than it actually does. And so,
Yeah.
yes, I think you, first of all, you can reset your algorithms, everybody. And, or
Yes,
if you
you
linger
can.
on something super positive and wonderful and for a
Mhm.
little while longer, trust me, the bots will send you more of that content if you like it or
1,000%.
not.
Yes.
So I say that's a really practical tip for people, because I
Yeah.
think what they think they are seeing is reality, and it's
Yeah.
not. It's a contrived
Yeah.
reality. Even the fluffy stuff that I'm seeing, I had to have a conversation with my kids about some of it. I think is staged, guys. Like some of these
Oh, yeah.
random acts of kindness, and a lot of them probably are staged. And
Yes.
so that's the first point. The second point, when you talked about self-awareness and identifying scenarios, I always come back to, would I say this to a child?
Mhm.
Would I burst a child's bubble this way?
Yeah.
Would I rob a child of this hope or this dream? Or because
Mhm.
I feel sometimes we give kids this endless sense of support and ability to dream and have high hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
And we would never dare crush them, but we
Mhm.
will do it often for adults, to your point, under the
Yeah.
guise of I'm trying to protect them,
Yes.
maybe a little bit of protecting yourself because you don't want to have to deal with them when it doesn't
Mhm.
work out.
That's
But
right.
I often try to put things through the lens of, what would I say this to a child? And even again, like I don't want to get a child too worked up about something.
Yeah.
So I would probably not, I would still probably give the child hope, but frame it a certain way
Yeah.
differently. So I think those are really practical takeaways to help people learn to fuel their hope muscle a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And being I love how you're framing that. You're absolutely right. And to your point about the algorithm, it's like when I've noticed that I've gone down like a wee bit of a rabbit hole on social media, because like we're human and this is little digital dopamine drips in our hands, right? Like there's
Yes.
no judgment. It would be more abnormal if you didn't doom scroll. Like that would be more like, what's that about? So like this is a
Yes.
behavior that totally makes sense. And what's interesting, when I notice, I catch myself, right? I catch myself going like, okay, wow, I've been here a bit longer than I want to. I on purpose will do like a feed cleanse in the terms of like I am searching up puppies and I am
Yes.
searching up right things, because the next time I pick this up, that for you page is going to be like peppered with puppies. It's
Yeah.
not going to be peppered with like, all of these like new you, new year
Yes.
pressure, all this hype
Yes.
cycle, all this noise to be like, oh my gosh, do I have the right lasers pointing on my face? Like none of that, like all of that gets washed away and I'm starting with a clean slate. So again, being able to like reset those practices, and not that there's any judgment or shame for going down those rabbit holes or getting tied up in listening to the news or feeling deeply impacted by what's going on, but we don't have to marinate in it. Right. We don't have to be like, oh, well, I've already lost an hour. I might as well spend 3 more hours
Right.
here. Right. It's
Right.
just catching yourself and then shifting and doing something that pulls you back to that place where you feel calmer, steadier. You have that sense of ease that we know that happens when, again, to circle back to your word, is when we're able to kind of surrender and be in the
Mhm.
moment. And the moment, it's pretty great.
Yeah. And I mean, people might wonder, okay, why are you going so hard on social media here? But I think that is a major contributor in this day and age to people's level of hope. I
Thousand
think,
percent.
I think
Yes.
it is
Yeah.
like, forget children, millennials, everybody is a victim
Yeah.
and has the ability to leverage social media to fuel our hope or to really kill it. And I
Yeah.
think when first social media was first developed, and I was listening to a podcast about this, and I'm going to butcher this concept, but it was developed as something where you could search and seek out and
Yes.
find and connect
Yeah. Networking.
through your proactive
That's right.
energies. Now we just absorb like reactionary zombies, whatever's thrown at us. Sometimes I find
Yeah.
myself watching things and you don't realize it till someone looks over your shoulder and they're like, what are you looking at? And you're like, oh
Yeah.
God, I don't know.
Yeah.
How did I get
How
here?
did I get here?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I think people forget that you can control, it's actually designed for you to control it. But in the absence of you telling your social media algorithm what you want, it's just going to feed you a bunch of stuff to see
Yeah.
what sticks. And so I often tell people, use that search bar.
Mhm.
throw in things that you want to see, puppies,
Yeah.
I don't know, recipes with
Yeah.
pickles, cottage
Mhm.
cheese, like you pick it, whatever's
Travel.
going
Yeah.
on these days,
Yep.
and I think you control, because I think that allows you to decide what you want to let in and how you
Yeah.
can be more hopeful. And yeah, I'm glad we talked about social media, because it can be so wonderful if you control it, if you are in
Absolutely.
control of it.
Yeah. And a piece that you've just scratched the surface on that I just think is so useful and hopefully will be for your listeners as well is that, people say to me often, here you are trying to do this like battle cry to get people their hopes up. Like, have you even looked out at the world? The world is in a horrible place right now. And it almost is like naive of you to tell people like better days are ahead. And one of the pieces that I share from like, from when we look at like from evolutionary psychology, we were never meant to be aware of this amount of information impacting this amount of
Mhm.
people at the pace in which we are taking it in. The storyline and the history line of our planet has not been very peaceful. It has not been very gentle. It has not been very kind. Historically, we know that as a species that has evolved and developed. And the reality is that persons even 100 years ago, they had no idea what was happening on the other side of the planet. And there's this idea that we haven't evolved enough at the same rapid pace as
Mm.
our information has evolved for us to be able to handle it.
Oh,
Right. So
yeah.
we're actually like evolutionary designed to know about the ins and outs and the workings of maybe about 200 people. We have access to billions of storylines. So we want to be gentle with our nervous system that it is just in this constant state of this world feels really unsafe. The reality, the world has actually been pretty unsafe and pretty in a place of transition, in a place of unrest. And again, that doesn't discount what's happening right now. And what can also be true is that we're meant to have it in smaller segments. We're not meant to have it in these like 24-hour news reels like we're exposed to right now. And also people just talking about it. Usually, like, not even that many decades ago, we would go to church or we would go to the market or we would go to the post office and we would get news and updates. We weren't getting them at the same degree in which we get them right now.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because this came up in our household. Like, my husband and I had to create rules. He loves absorbing politics and all this
Yes.
stuff. But
Yes.
I felt like he became a miserable, like, communicator of just negativity all the time. Everything was bad.
Yeah.
Politics were bad. Like, and I couldn't handle it. As referring back to my comments earlier, I like
Yeah.
comedies. I
Yes.
like
Yeah.
people dancing and puppies. And so
Yes.
I we had to get to a point where it was like, the rule is you cannot complain about it unless it's something you are going to fix or that you
Mhm.
can fix. Otherwise, it's not our problem.
Yeah.
And I don't think that makes me naive or
Mhm.
ignorant or uninformed. I really try to focus, to your point, on the pieces of information that affect my day to day, that
Yes.
affect the people and the things that I care about, and that I have a certain element of control over. Because there are a
Absolutely.
lot of people swirling in these negative narratives, worried about things that are happening overseas, when there are people in our own communities who are struggling.
Yes.
Why don't we start there? That's actually
Yeah.
something we can do something about. And it's been
Yeah.
a healthy boundary, because now we can have conversations that aren't just doomsday conversations. And again, I would love to see his algorithms, although it would probably terrify me.
Mhm.
um, I just, if I can't control it, and if I can't do something about it, and it doesn't affect me directly, then I can't let it sit with me that long. And I'm okay not being fully informed on all world matters. I'm
Yeah.
okay if I don't know everything that's happening in every part of the world. And if
Yes.
that makes me look naive or ignorant, I can live with that. That
Yeah.
is easier for me to manage than having the life sucked out of me and not being able
Yes.
to show up as a mom for
Yeah.
my own kids. So
100%.
yeah.
I just hold space for what you're saying because like that is actually like staying heroically hope filled, right? Like it is literally like these are the guardrails, these are
Yeah.
the boundaries, and I'm going to defend it. And that's why like being hope filled isn't for the meek. Like this is literally hard
Yeah.
conversations where I'm choosing to be in this place. And again, it's not that you are naive. It's not that you're not informed or not educated. It literally is I only have so much space, energy, focus, and opportunity. And this is how I'm choosing to spend my time.
Yeah.
This is how I'm choosing to have conversation. And again, we weren't designed to be this like know it all of all the things,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not our nature. That's not our psychology. That's not our temperament. And if you think about it, this is one of the ways that I frame it for my kids. Cause I have three teenagers.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I often talk about is the importance of closing the loop. And what I
Mm.
mean by that, one of the contributors that I've seen a lot that's contributing to burnout for people professionally, but also personally, is how many open loops we have. Meaning how many things that we've thought about, started, worried
Yeah.
about, and we don't ever have resolution. We've never like landed that plane. We've
Mm.
never actually brought that full circle. And so again, what's so important to me is that like our brain really loves to make meaning. We're natural born problem solvers. We like to make meaning of things. And if I'm just getting all of this input and I'm not seeing action, I'm not seeing resolution, I'm not putting it anywhere, that just creates this noise and
Mhm.
this cognitive pressure that's incorporating and contributing to enormous amounts of stress. And so when we're saying like, wow, everybody's so anxious, it's like, yeah, because they literally have 100 open tabs right now on everything personal, professional, and they're just feeling like I'm never catching up. I'm always coming from a place of lack or behind or that scarcity mindset versus like bringing back some simplicity to, okay, we're going to have a conversation about this. Great. Now let's slow down long enough so we can actually close the loop. And once you start closing the loop, and this isn't closing the rings on your watch and you need to go do 10,000 steps and you need to
Hate
get
those
8 hours
so
of
much.
sleep. Those aren't the loops. I'm talking about actually like with our spouses, like finishing a conversation, being
Mm.
able to say, okay, so now we've talked about this. And what's the next step? What are we going to do about it? Like bringing some closure.
Yes.
Because right now I look at it that, and the example I shared recently was like, it feels to me that like 2025 was this massive scavenger hunt. We
Mhm.
are running around all over the place, frantically chasing, like it's an episode of The Amazing Race, but none of us remember what we're looking for. Like none of us remember what it is. And I'm looking around being like, oh, wow, we're these little rats in the rat race and we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
When we slow down and actually finish a conversation, when we slow down to actually have a meal with our loved ones and really check in and check up, all of a sudden that noise that feels omnipresent, you start to notice it pushing back a wee bit. And even a practice that we have in our house, and I've shared this, I think, with you before, is, in our house, nobody eats alone. So
Mm,
even
I
if you
love
come
that.
home at practice at 11 p.m., somebody is going to sit with you because sitting around table in connection is so important to our psychology and our sense of belonging and community. And I could share with you just briefly when Hunter, he's up in third year, or he's in third year university. And when he moved in with his new housemates, one of them he walked in after class and one of them was sitting by themselves, like mucking a sub. And Hunter's like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just having a sub. And Hunter's like, no, we don't eat alone. He's like, just a second. Let me just get off my coat. And he sat down with his roommate and his roommate's like, do you want some? He's like, no, dude, I already ate, but like, you don't eat alone. And
I love that.
Hunter said that he's just like, Mom, do you know other people don't do that? And I'm like,
That
yes,
it's weird
actually,
if people
yes,
eat by themselves sometimes.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And again, but what it is, it's like when we're having conversation, when somebody
Mm,
just shows up for you, that's when we have that opportunity to like see each other. We slow
yeah.
down, we reconnect. And then all of a sudden, again, as I said, that noise and that omnipresent pressure, that urgency, that do, hustle, achieve, perform, the world's awful, all of that becomes background noise and isn't the main event.
I love that. And closing the loops or closing the tabs is so important because I think everybody lives in this constant state of I'm so busy. And it's almost
Yeah.
like worn like a trophy. And I'm sure we've talked
Yes.
about this before. But I think there's just a lot of tasks that have been checked off complete. And I don't think everything needs resolution. I just think it
Yeah.
needs to be closed. I think
Yeah.
close the file, move on from it, put it away,
Mhm.
step away from it, and don't take on something else until you've decluttered a little bit.
Yes.
Your brain is not an endless space for tasks and
That's right.
responsibilities and thoughts and ideas. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to create that space. I want to talk about humor because
Mhm.
this is one of the tools you
Yes.
talk about for resiliency,
Mhm.
connecting it to hope. Talk a little bit about the role because I love this because I think I
Yeah.
use humor in many capacities
Yeah.
to cope in life. But how do you see it most effective?
Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that. And so, yes, what we know about the practice of humor is it's not disparaging. It's not, it's not at the cost of somebody else. But when we're just able to like kind of almost hit this wee bit of a pause button and we, if we laugh or we share a joke, something funny, something special, what actually happens is our body releases this natural tranquilizer. So our
Mm.
pain receptors are blocked for that moment in time. Now, that doesn't solve your problems, but it does offer a moment of reprieve. It's like kind of like the exhale, right? It's that, that opportunity just to like kind of take your foot off the gas for just a moment. It allows our kind of biological pharmacy to kick in. It just gives us a wee bit of relief. And it's something that can serve us really well. So when folks are feeling, again, the heaviness of the world. And, I remember working with educators during COVID and we were looking at what was their go-to recovery strategy. Now, these are the people that are like literally doing online school. This is a mess. What a horrible season that was for educators. And what I heard so often, Marissa, they would say, oh my gosh, at the end of the day, I love to just curl up with a serial killer documentary, or I love to watch my Law and Order. Anything with like Dick Wolf seemed to be the
Yes.
thing. And that's how they were like calming these nervous systems by watching this sensational content. And I understand why, because their stress threshold has been so high by what they were doing with their students and trying to cope. What happens is for something to hold their attention, it needs to be sensational. It needs to
Right.
be extreme. However, that's just putting this chronic stress and even more stress on our nervous system. And when people started to adopt practices like watching the comedies, by doing things that were more lighthearted. Now, the differentiator, it's not mindlessness, right? Like it is not mindlessness. Like good quality comedy is rich with like in it, like kind of inside understandings. Like if we look at something like Ted Lasso, the writing in that is brilliant. It's not mindless comedy,
No,
but like when you just start
that's smart
noticing
actually.
smart comedy, like that kind of pieces, it has this beautiful reset effect on the nervous system. And the other one too, also that we saw was a powerful tool was actually Disney Shorts. So just these 3 or 4 5-minute long little Disney vignettes. They're all over YouTube. You can also get them through Disney. But watching these little heart-filled stories that are just shared in such simple ways gave people this beautiful wash of their adrenal system for them also just to have that sense that all will be well.
I love that so much. And again, I'm so grateful that you give us ideas of things that we can go do tomorrow. And I hope is such an important part of what, the life that I'm living right now. I think I've shared with you and with many of the
Yeah.
listeners, my brother is going through a
Yes.
cancer journey. And, when life happens, and it doesn't have to be a diagnosis, like you said, it could be anything,
Yeah.
you realize how important hope is in terms of
Yeah.
allowing you to put one foot in front of the other. And I'll share this with you. So I took him to his chemo treatment last week. And I was, everyone's sitting there and you're in a building and everybody's there for the same reason where it's a cancer clinic. Everyone's getting chemo.
Yeah.
And he went in to get his blood test done as he does before every treatment. And I said, good luck, have fun. And the lady next to me chuckles. She's like, yeah, I'm sure he's having a blast. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
he's my baby brother. He's the same kid who passed out when he wanted an earring when he was 14. And I think he's passed out, I don't know how many other times giving blood since then. So it's kind of an inside joke. So I'm always like, have fun, because I think the giving of the blood is the hardest part of the
Yes,
cancer
for
journey
him.
for him.
Oh.
And it's so funny because then you get in a room and you're in a room, there's 4 other people getting treatment.
Yeah.
Everyone's hooked up to their IVs and there's generally someone with them.
Yes.
And I'll be damned if it's not my life mission to have everybody laughing at some
Yes.
point, right? I
Yeah.
walk in and my brother's like, just don't say anything. Just,
Yeah.
I can just see it on his face because he's like, everyone's just in their zone.
Yep.
And so the first time we went, I get chatty and I start
Mhm.
talking to people and I'm just like, I'm just going to make people laugh because it's the only
Yeah.
way I know how in this moment.
To handle
And
the
then,
big feelings, right?
yes,
Like
it's
that's
like,
how we're processing big feelings for
yes,
sure.
and universally, everyone can slap a smile on their face. Like there's
Yeah.
something about humor that's universal
Yeah.
to a certain degree.
It is.
And then last week when we went, I brought chocolates because I thought I don't need all these Christmas chocolates sitting
Yes.
here. I said, I'll bring chocolates. And I just went around passing them out. I said, here's, a chocolate. I said, it just makes all your problems go away. And,
Oh.
got a good chuckle. And it's so funny because I came home and I was telling my friend this story and she just said, you probably just did it to make yourself feel better, Marissa, because it's true. For me to sit there for an hour
Of course.
quietly and just watch this
Yeah.
thing happen. But she goes, you probably just that little ray of humor gave those people
Yeah.
hope, right? And
Yes.
maybe thought, coming back next time may not be so bad. There may be
Yeah.
a crazy lady with chocolates next time. Who
Yeah.
knows? So
Absolutely.
I can't thank you enough for leaning into such an important theme because it's real life.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a real connection between hope and success.
I
I
do.
think there's a real connection between hope and joy and living a wonderful life.
Mhm.
And I see that there is a direct connection between hope and overcoming illness and
Yes.
overcoming adversity and dealing with grief and sorrow and sadness.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for leaning into this, what some may say is a fluffy topic, but I think it is an underutilized weapon in all of
Yes.
our personal toolboxes. And I hope everybody finds their own way to foster hope in their lives. And I hope everybody gets this book. Where can people get this book?
Oh, I love. Oh, first of all, just on the website or anywhere where you buy books, it's available: audio, ebook, Kindle, all the things. But also, just I love that you are the woman in the oncology department
The
who's
crazy
like,
woman.
yeah, like I love that, and this is what I desperately want more of in the world. This
Yeah.
idea of being a hope dealer, right? Like literally, like putting ourselves out there, being able to like. It's not that we have to get it right or know exactly what to say, but again, what we're just doing is just reconnecting with humanity, that this world is big and scary and there's a lot of stuff going on, but we're not designed or meant to do this alone. So I love that you are the woman in that cancer clinic who is like having a good go and getting people's hopes up, because again, we're all in this together, and that is such a gift. It's, just recently I was on a flight and I could share with you like this baby was not coping, and this poor
Oh,
mama
no.
was holding this baby, and I went up to her, I'm like, I love screaming babies, can I please hold your baby for you? And she looked at me and I'm like, I'm a mother, I have 3 children,
Like, I
and
sound
let
a
me
little
tell you,
crazy, but it's true.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm like, if you want to just have a cup of coffee, I will hold screaming babies. Like they're literally
Yes.
my favorite. And and everybody around us kind of started to laugh. And then she's like, oh, I wouldn't want to put you out. I'm like, no, you're putting me in. Like, put me in, coach. Let me hold your screaming baby. We are in a confined space. There's nowhere I'm going to take this baby than other up and down the aisle on this plane. And like, again, it's just like,
Mm.
please take action.
Yes.
Whatever that looks like. And you know what? Maybe somebody's going to be a wee bit grumpy. That speaks more about their experience than it does about you being a hope dealer. And I love, Marissa, that you are that woman that's showing up for your brother and those people. And again, it's exactly what I think the world needs more of.
And you talk about this in your book, but I'm telling you, giving hope just fuels your own hope. Right?
1,000%.
Giving hope to other people only fuels and reconfirms your own, hope condition. And I really do. I hope people follow you. You're constantly putting out amazing
Thank you.
content. I'll put it in the show notes where people can follow you if people aren't already following you. And I would encourage people to go back and listen to your first episode of Teeter Talks together. I've listened to it multiple times. I listened to it again this morning.
Thank you.
So much good stuff there. And, I'm grateful for the work that you do. It is very evident that you want to make a change, that you want to help people. And I want to say thank you. And I look forward to having you back again. So wishing you all the best with this book. I hope everybody gets it and enjoys it, and look forward to seeing you soon.